Water suppliers merger cleared. Freak flood kills 7 in Western Highlands. And isolation facility proposed for Jacksons.
This is National EMTV News with Merba Tulo.
A very good evening. Thank you for joining us. This is Wednesday's news. The proposed merger of public utility companies Water PNG and Edarano has been given clearance by the country's competition regulator. According to the Independent Consumer and Competition Commission, whilst the merger now sees Water PNG take over the operations of Edarano in the National Capital District, effectively creating a monopoly on water and sewage services, it is confident that this will not see prices for these services increase dramatically in the near future. The ICCC this week provided its response to a request for clearance submitted by Water PNG in October 2019 on competition grounds. This followed a decision made by the NEC to have Water PNG acquire the operations of Edarano in NCD. According to the ICCC, following wide consultations with stakeholders, there were mixed comments, with one main fear, a perceived monopoly that would see prices for water and sewage services increase in NCD as a result of this merger.
According to the ICCC's assessment and findings, the monopoly issue that the general public is concerned will not be a concern for the ICCC. Mainly because the two water entities operate in two separate environments. One operates in Port Moresby, the other one operates outside of Port Moresby. So the merger in itself, in our view and according to our findings, will not have any monopoly issues.
The ICCC of the view that the proposed merger would not adversely affect the provision of water services, in NCD at least, given that the ICCC sets water tariff rates.
The prices annually for not only water but all utilities that we regulate. What we do is we have a 5-year regulatory period. As soon as the regulatory period ends, we go through a public consultation and review process with stakeholders and the utilities themselves.
With clearance now given by the ICCC, Water PNG is now expected to complete the acquisition of Edarano's operation and assets.
The ICCC's part is now concluded. Now that's the approval that we are giving it to the water companies and the shareholder. It's now for them to make that decision whether they want to proceed, they want to delay. It's all up to them. But we are saying there is no competition issue for us.
7 people are confirmed to have died in flash flooding in the Mul district of Western Highlands province. The bodies of 4 people were retrieved yesterday, miles away from the disaster area. Another 3 remain missing. EMTV News arrived at the scene some hours later. Vasina Tayama with this report.
These are the damages caused by the small riverbank. The extent of the damage has involved 7 people confirmed dead and 3 or 4 unconfirmed reports of people missing during the sudden flood. Food gardens, houses and animals were washed away by the flood. Locals are still shocked that a small river can flood to an extent of 30 meters wide and 10 meters deep with a tidal wave consequences.
Mikam painim diwai long wara close to wara istabia. Ami iron pairap now. Mi tanim na lugi mi wara kam. Now mi no got way low. Igo now mi Ronnie go andap now wara kam now simaus.
The local Nanga people said there was no rain yesterday to cause the river to flood. That was why they were caught by surprise. At around 3 to 4 p.m. yesterday, nature took its own course and the flash flooding continued till midnight. The small river called Kuma starts from the foot of Mt Hagen, joins the Gumanch River and ends at Kikori. These locals also lived at the tip of Mt Hagen in Mul LLG. LG. Local eyewitness Angra Pulga said he returned from the bush and heard the raging sound from the river, and in no time he saw the small river turn into an angry wave, carrying down big stones and trees turned upside down. Angra fled for his life.
Before Tumbuno only like fight one them stick now, put him stick and double face all Nakam, one can also become me parade na me talk. What are you like for fight one them Musat man Nagam? Me talk also now, Mr. Blue and Warakam and up now me run away go finish.
Magi met all the time of stabbing set na. Rausen Banis brothers la house na. Come out.
A permanent house and household goods belonging to the Mul LLG president was also washed away. The flood left nothing except the big stones and logs. Assistant District Administrator, who's also a local, said the flood also took away 2 excavators, 2 permanent bridges and some sawmills, a worst disaster he has ever witnessed.
Potato garden, cow garden, everything.
The locals are cut off from going to the town, school or hospital. They are appealing to the local MP, governor and the National Disaster Center for relief supplies, as well as quick repairs to the damaged roads and bridges.
So when disaster come up, you mean province as a province or district, we must be the first ones to respond. Now waiting on National Disaster Center now. All honorable friends will come and help you.
Vasinata Yama, National EMTV News, Mt Hagen.
Civil Aviation Minister Lekwa Gura has said measures in place for airlines and at Jackson's International Terminal are sufficient enough, stating the airline operators Air Niugini and Philippine Airlines to comply with directives set in place to not uplift passengers originating from Hubei province, where Wuhan city is located, and passengers from mainland China to have medical certificates before boarding. Meanwhile, the minister has also stated a quarantine building will be set up at the old terminal where people arriving from China will be quarantined for 14 days.
In terms of giving the necessary restrictions to the airlines that operate into Papua New Guinea, particularly Air Niugini and Philippine Airlines. Then Air Niugini operates to the Asian ports like Singapore, Hong Kong and Manila, apart from the Australian ports. So the restrictions that have been given, and which is also in the public domain, are adequate. Like basically preventing any passengers that originate from Hubei province in China and the city of Wuhan, and but that also includes any passengers originating from mainland China. Yeah. So even if they come to like Manila or Hong Kong or Singapore, then airlines have been advised not to uplift those passengers until they have been quarantined for 14 days and perhaps in possession of a medical clearance certificate in the possession before they can be uplifted. So those are the restrictions that have been given to the airlines to comply with in Port Moresby, to build a incubation center where the old terminal used to be. I understand that the builder can put it up fairly quickly in a matter of 7 days. Yeah, so that's still in discussion at the moment. So that anybody who comes from those suspected areas, they can be separated, put into this incubation center for at least 14 days. And if they don't develop any of those symptoms, then they can be released into the communities. Yeah.
The Air New Zealand flight carrying those 190 people evacuated, including 17 Papua New Guineans from Wuhan in China, landed in Auckland at around 6 p.m. New Zealand time this evening.
Is due at 6:15. The stage is set here for its arrival. The plane is slightly late, but that's to be expected really, given that the loading in Wuhan of the 190 people that it picked up ran slightly over time. We understand that the things have tracked pretty well today. It's an 11.5-hour flight down from Wuhan to New Zealand, and we understand that things seem to be going pretty well. Once the plane gets here, there's going to be some customs procedure. We don't have full information about what that is yet, but we understand all the passengers will be separate. It's a special MPI setting that will process the passengers before they get on the buses and head north to go into quarantine. And this is how the day unfolded.
A busy hub about to get even busier due to special plans in place for passengers from Wuhan. An Air New Zealand 777 with medical experts on board arriving there overnight. Among those leaving on it, Yin Wang, well prepared for the long flight after her family missed out on seats on Australia's early rescue flight.
We're still thinking we should quickly go to our supermarket to buy more baby food and some instant food.
She's among 190 people with medical clearance to board the special flight, including 54 New Zealand citizens and 44 New Zealand permanent residents on Chinese passports. 35 Australians who'll be flying on to Australia. The remaining 57 include passengers from Britain, Timor-Leste, PNG and other Pacific nations. The fallout from the potentially deadly virus continuing to be felt worldwide. In Japan, nearly 4,000 people are quarantined on a cruise ship in Yokohama after tests confirming 10 passengers with the coronavirus. El Salvador's also on high alert after a woman arriving from China was quarantined, and medical authorities in Haiti now screening passengers as the World Health Organization calls for improved data sharing between nations.
We can only defeat this outbreak with global solidarity, and that starts with collective participation in global surveillance.
But it's close local surveillance that awaits the Wuhan passengers here, a fortnight quarantined at a base north of Auckland.
And Foreign Affairs Minister Patrick Pruach has said thank you to the New Zealand government for helping in the evacuation of 17 PNG students from Wuhan City, China. The 17 students arriving around 5 p.m. local time in Auckland this afternoon. They are expected to be transferred to a defence facility to be quarantined for 14 days before returning home to Port Moresby. Minister Pruach said this humanitarian gesture shows the close ties between PNG and the New Zealand government. Meanwhile, Chinese ambassador to PNG, Zhu Bing, says as much as possible the Chinese government is putting more efforts to contain the virus within its borders.
Thank the New Zealand government and the Australian government for your assistance to Papua New Guinea citizens who are studying in China. Because of the coronavirus, we had to ensure that our citizens are evacuated, and thank you for that help.
What we are doing here is to try to contain the virus inside China, inside Hubei province. That's the sacrifice the Chinese government and Chinese people, has to give. We want to contain the virus inside China rather than exporting them.
This is National EMTV News. We'll be back with more right after these messages. Welcome back to National EMTV News. The National Airports Corporation has a new board led by Chairman Michael Coyson. Coyson and 3 fellow members were sworn into office today. According to Civil Aviation Minister Lekwa Gure, the industry is confident that the new board will offer more transparency and accountability oversight over this key aviation entity. Senior management executives of the National Airports Corporation today witnessed the swearing-in of 4 members of the NAC board. The 4, including new chairman Michael Coyson, shareholder representative Joseph Kintau, Tourism Industry Association representative Jerry Agus, and aviation industry representative Roland Abaija. They join ex-officio board members Treasury Secretary Dari Vele, Transport Secretary Roy Mumu, and NAC Acting Managing Director Ephraim Wase. Also present today were Finance Minister Rambow and Minister Responsible, Civil Aviation Minister Lekwa Gure. Minister Gure welcoming the new members to the NAC board.
So once again, thank you to the 4 independent directors for accepting the nominations to be on this board, and also the ex-officials.
The NAC is responsible for the maintenance and operations of 22 airports throughout the country, a huge responsibility that requires strategic leadership. And with new chairman Michael Khoisen now at the helm, Minister Gura is confident that the board can assist in bringing more transparency and accountability to the NAC during its 4-year term.
I'm grateful that he showed his interest to get back on the board, and as the portfolio minister, as it is the process, the procedure with NEC appointments, the portfolio minister is usually asked for his recommendation. So I personally recommended Mr. Michael Khoisen to be the chairman of the board. And talking to other industry players, CASA PNG and other people, it would seem that the selection of Mr. Michael Khoisen as the chairman is a good one, and we expect more transparent operation of the board as they set in a new direction for this National Airports Corporation.
Whilst not being specific, Minister Gura has told MTV News that there are several issues to be addressed by the new board, including operational issues, as a matter of urgency.
There are 7 issues that I'll be talking to the board about, which are like topical at the moment, in as far as the organization is concerned. So they'll start with those issues, but then other issues will come up in their normal course of their running of the organization. I'm very confident that Mr. Michael Khoisen will provide a leadership in which the organization will be run in a more transparent and open manner.
The aviation industry in Papua New Guinea looks set to continue benefiting from the Civil Aviation Development Investment Program. With CADIP 1 now in its 3rd tranche, Civil Aviation Minister Lekwa Gure says significant improvements will be realized at several airports throughout the country. The minister adding that the country's aviation sector stands ready to benefit from CADIP 2 when it begins later this year.
CADIP 1, we are into tranche 3 at the moment, and it's going to run for the next 2 years, which will end in November 2021. But in as far as CADIP 2 is concerned, the management of it will be the same, but it's just that different projects will be captured under CADIP 2. And one of the things that I've become aware of under CADIP 2 is the development of some of the rural airstrips into regional airports. And currently, from what I understand, there have been 7 airstrips selected, which will be developed into regional airports.
A copy of the writ of summons filed by the Madang Provincial Government at the Waigani National Court will be served on the management of Rambow Nickel Mine tomorrow. The summons is sought based on recommendations from further studies conducted from reports that waste from the mine was not properly treated before it was disposed.
Rambow Nickel has been listed as the main respondent in this case.
We are basing our course of action on the principle of strict liability, that they have occasioned the contamination, and then therefore they should be responsible for it. We understand that the state has failed big time in many of the aspects of managing the project, the Rambow Nickel project.
With 13 principal plaintiffs representing 7,968 people from the affected communities in Madang. The grounds the case is being filed on is primarily on scientific evidence that includes the effects of environmental damage caused to marine life at communities surrounding the mine, and allegations that Rambow Nickel failed to take measures to minimize the effects of the contamination.
The orders that we're seeking in this writ, in summary, basically that we're seeking a relocation of the tailing dams, because that's the major aspect of the case, that a lot of this contamination are caused by the deep sea tailing placement. And we have looked at the previous report relating to the submarine tailing dams, and they were against the idea of building the deep sea tailing placement by the Rambow Nickel. But that advice did not comply with, so they went ahead to issue the permit despite the fact that the Environment and Conservation should have taken that into account and tell them to go and build a dam inland. But in this case, they have not complied with those recommendations by the scientists. And so that is one of the orders that we're seeking, and that is to relocate the tailing placement back inland to our specific area based on the recommendations from engineers and scientists.
Previous reports out of Basamuk have shown some level of contamination in affected areas because of deep-sea tailoring placement.
2001, I was member of Bundi. I told them that they should address this issue, and they have never done that from 2001. If they would have addressed this issue that I raised in 2001, when I was a member of Bundi in 2002, and 2003 before the agreement was signed in 2004, I think we won't come to this problem now. Issues in relation to Basamuk spill and all that. The issue was that, the Highlands Pacific, when they sold the rights to the MCC, China government, the recommendation of the Highlands Pacific was that the dam must be built in Bundi, in the area where the Rambow Nickel area, in Kurumbakari. A proper dam must be built there, and everything, all the waste must be stored there. They must not pipe it all the way from there to Basamuk. For the economic convenience for themselves, they want to save money. They decided to pipe it and to dispose the waste rather than having a proper dam built, because building a dam would cost 1.5 billion.
The orders the writ of summons is now seeking includes the relocation of the dumping site and an injunction order preventing further shipment out of the mine. Thakla Gunga, National MTV News.
About 6 billion kina has been used in the past 5 years to build and maintain major roads in the country. Work Secretary David Were says despite criticism of abuse and inflations in roadwork contracts, the department is keeping track of its financial books. Secretary Were says the New Britain Highway and Trans Highway are examples of regional roads the department is building and are 60% complete.
Speaking in Port Moresby, Secretary Were says the department is making sure money collected for building and maintaining roads is put to good use. He says building roads is never easy for the Works Department. Development partners, including government loans, have been the backing to connect regional roads and providing that access people need. A record of 6 billion kina has been used in the past 5 years.
Our expenditure to date in the last 5 years stands around something less than 6 billion, which I think is also a record in any 5 years in the past.
According to Were, priority is given to missing links like the New Britain Highway, Transnational Highway and Sepik Highway. Were says work on these roads is progressing despite the struggling state of the economy. With new innovations to stop abuse of road funding in all road contracts, Finance and Treasury is keeping track on every money spent by Works Department.
Government is becoming very aware of improving our road network in the country, and there's lots of backing and support coming in terms of funding appropriation. We really appreciate the support we get in from Treasury. For the first time, Treasury, Finance, Planning, we are together now, as partners.
The Works Department is now embarking on plans to complete all major roads in 5-year intervals. Secretary Were says the Marape Stephen government is continuing the efforts by the previous government to commit funding in major national roads. He says regional managers and provincial governments must cooperate to liaise with the department and align plans so funding is put to good use and see people benefit by accessing services through better road network.
As a result of this, being able to do about 48% of the main highways are now in seal condition. Those are the results of those level of funding availability and expenditures we have recorded over the last 5 years.
Jacob Power Jr., National MTV News.
The Morobe Province now, and Makam MP Connie Iguan has called on the Morobe Provincial Administration to have time for the 9 MPs of the province to work together with them and the Governor. Iguan said this during the passing of the 2020 Morobe Provincial Budget of almost 500 million kina this week. The Makam MP said there is no proper consultation between the Morobe Provincial Government and administration that has resulted in the exclusion of the 9 MPs in planning the 2020 budget.
Makam MP Connie Iguan is not happy with how the Morobe Provincial Administration has been communicating with the provincial government. Iguan says there is no proper consultation between the administration and the 9 MPs of Morobe, creating obstacles in the implementation of developments in the districts and the province. He raised this concern during the passing of the 2020 Morobe Provincial Budget in Lae.
Government will come out with a good 15 now. We have a partnership work on PSIP. I'm going to give people 500,000. People are putting that again and people are working project. First time to governor give you Bisla, Logina, Michigan, governor, and governor. First time governor give you money to direct to Logini. After governor present in Bisla, or open to us and people are member in acquitted. 500,000, so all not releasing tax money. So instead of releasing money for people district, all they are working, our contract will like to go, like to go. We can't go to say, one contract I go for district building. How is the contract I go? It's money way. Untuk kau partnership money out, government untuk money out. Di plan waktu di Nusa Nahulan no province. All they are giving no contract na contract I can go. Hey, people district tu putih money no same road na. Province tu go give same okay na. We have kind of
On Monday, the Morobe Governor Ginson Sanu presented the 2020 provincial budget of almost 500 million kina to the Tutumang Assembly. While delivering the budget speech, Governor Ginson Sanu said the provincial government also included in the budget 2 million kina as district infrastructure counterpart funding to the 8 districts and 9.5 million kina for Lae. Makam MP Connie Iguan questioned if the money would be paid to the district in installments or a lump sum.
Governor, we congratulate you, Lord. Partly working. People are aware about what they do. Looking for this money, you be committing now, one or the other thing. Governor, you make sure people will not know. They say, instead of 2 million kina check na you carry come to Makam, we working ceremony lo Makam na you come na press 2 million straight. On Makam mas looking myself, governor can give him hand to province, lo 1 project or 2 million and give him lo Makam. I know that, but we're not disclosing all.
The MPs who were present during the budget presentation said there have been confusions on funding allocations to implement developments in the districts due to the MPs' exclusion in the JPP and BPC meetings, the Joint District Planning and Budget Priority Committee that is normally made up of PEC members.
So all these kinds of meetings has to be held so that we have a consultation. We have meetings, remember, now past 2 years. Online budget, they fly to Mosby. Only people are meeting on them all. We did this before. Why this budget we have not part of it? Why? People are good though. People are power, people are budget though. Let's make things straight. People are like helping governor for this province. We want a partnership budget. People like partner law. Work, government making. 3-month government making. People like work to work. Now politics are busted and people are moved to party. That's what people over there. And people over there, party money, give you both law, government here. And people over there got one dream of the name of cement to Morobe. And that is our agenda. That is our way to. They're still working on that. Administration have time for us.
Julie Badui, Owa, National MTV News, Lae.
PNG Air Services Limited today presented 50,000 kina towards the country's efforts to raise funds to help neighbouring Australia rebuild after the bushfire devastation. The donation was made through the PNG Hearts for Australia Bushfire Appeal.
A small ceremony was held for the presentation. Present to witness the gathering was the PNG Air Services Management, Australian High Commission representatives, and PNG Hearts for Australia Bushfire Appeal Chairman Paul Nerau.
On behalf of the board, management and staff of PNG ASL, I would like to pass our deepest sympathies to the people of Australia for the unprecedented suffering caused by the wildfires.
PNG Air Services Limited is in charge of the country's air traffic control. Like many organizations that have benefited from partnerships with Australia since independence, it wants to give back for the help it's received in past years.
We have benefited enormously for the various development programs, which has been a tremendous help to us. And this help has seen tremendous transformation of the air traffic management landscape in PNG. We have successfully transitioned from the use of outdated analog systems to the most advanced state-of-the-art technologies and systems.
Chairman of the PNG Hearts for Australia Fire Appeal, Paul Nerau, thanked PNG Air Services for coming on board to support the cause.
We know Australia can look up itself and deliver all the things that they want to, but we want to show Australia that we are about supporting each other, because Australia has been many occasions when we are at the bottom of the barrel.
The company is amongst others who have come forward to help in the cause. Over 2 million kina has been raised from the contributions from government agencies, corporate bodies and individuals. The committee aims to raise 5 million kina in the space of the remaining 5 weeks of the targeted date. Bradley Valenaki, National EMTV News.
This is Wednesday's news. We go for another break. When we come back, we take a look at stories making headlines overseas. Welcome back to Wednesday's news. Turning overseas now, and in Victoria in Australia, the town of Mallacoota in Victoria's east has reopened to the public after it was cut off during the New Year bushfires.
Mallacoota is a town that's just at the start of what's going to be a very long recovery process. The Princess Highway all the way to the New South Wales border was reopened just yesterday, but the Genoa-Mallacoota Road, that's the road that runs off the Princess Highway into Mallacoota, is still closed and is only accessible for residents and people holding permits. Speaking to people around town yesterday, residents here are still in a lot of shock just about what happened. There seems to be a lot of anger, not at any one particular organisation or anyone in authority, but just a general anger that this is what's happened to them. Going around town, you can see burnt building after burnt building. There's a lot of burnt terrain still. Speaking to authorities just this morning, we're told that there will be some cleanup efforts that should begin soon. Of course, there are some concerns about asbestos as well. Obviously, a lot of these buildings were built a long time ago in the 50s and 60s and do contain asbestos. So there is concerns there about how the cleanup effort's going to go. Speaking to residents, though, I think they will be happy once that debris and the evidence of what happened here is finally cleaned away. People are trying to get back to normal. Obviously, school has gone back. There's been healing sessions through surf happening down on the beautiful beach here in Mallacoota. So it's just little bit by bit, people are going to build things back to normalcy. Obviously, looking ahead, those cleanup efforts will begin. Hopefully, the Genoa-Mallacoota Road will be open shortly, so all the public can come back into town again. I'd say at this point, Mallacoota is still not quite ready for tourists, but it certainly will be ready in the coming weeks and months to come, and they'll obviously be quite keen to welcome people back into Mallacoota, once they've had a little bit more time to process what's happened.
To the US now, snubbed handshakes, torn up papers and feisty exchanges between Democrat House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Donald Trump have marred his State of the Union address. It was the first time the two have come face to face since Pelosi had Trump impeached.
For the first time, Donald Trump came face to face with the Democrats that impeached him in the very room that it happened.
Members of Congress, the President of the United States.
There was no handshake for the Speaker of the House who led the impeachment, and it took Trump no time at all to paint Democrats with the S word.
Socialism destroys nations, but always remember freedom unifies the soul.
And paint himself as the saviour of the United States.
3 years ago, we launched the Great American Comeback. Tonight, I stand before you to share the incredible results. Jobs are booming, and our country is thriving and highly respected again.
For an hour and a half, Democrats sat glumly through his speech. Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, even tore up her copy of it, knowing that tomorrow senators will likely vote to keep Trump in office.
46, 47, 48, 40.
Meanwhile, America's election process descended into chaos and confusion. The Iowa caucus, the first time Democrats got the chance to vote for who they'd like to see take on Trump, turned into a farce. Votes didn't tally, and an app designed to compile the full result broke down. Emerging from it all, though, was Pete Buttigieg, the 38-year-old former mayor.
Tonight, an improbable hope became an undeniable reality.
He would make history, standing on stage with his husband.
How about a hand for the future First Gentleman of the United States?
A male candidate for the White House has never before been able to utter those words. And in beating two political stalwarts in Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden, the 2020 election campaign has begun with a major surprise, but not the only one.
The best is yet to come.
The latest poll shows Trump has a 49% approval rating, his highest ever since taking office.
This is National EMTV News. We go for another break. When we come back, some sporting updates in Trukai Sports.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome to Trukai Sports. We begin with football, and the OFC Champions League Group A matches are set to be staged here in PNG. Teams will arrive in the country on the 12th and 13th of this month before the first match on the 16th.
After 7 years, the OFC Champions League will return to Papua New Guinea. It was first played in 2013 between Hekari United and Amical FC from Vanuatu at the former PRL grounds in Port Moresby. This year, Hekari was successful in their bid to host the Group A matches in Port Moresby. Group A consists of Galaxy FC, Eastern Suburb, 2019 champions High End Sport and Hekari. This pool has been regarded as the pool of death.
For the first time in PNG, we will be hosting the Pool A group matches here in Port Moresby next weekend. With all great teams from various member associations in Oceania playing for the two qualifying sports.
All matches will be played at the Sejonggai Stadium beginning on the 16th of February. Teams will be using the Bisini soccer fields and Sejonggai Stadium for training. The local organizing committee has been working to make sure traveling teams have been approved visas to travel into the country.
The coronavirus that hit the headlines, these also affected our visiting teams in terms of lodging for the entry visas, but we're thankful that PNG Immigrations Authority have come on board, gave us another option, so we're working closely with them to ensure that all our visiting teams have the visas before they arrive, starting next week.
Each team will play 3 matches, the first round on Sunday the 16th, the second on the 19th, and round 3 will be played on the 22nd. The sale of tickets will be made known in the next few days, with the LOC to begin marketing and promoting the event.
We also plan to hold a small activity up at Vision City, maybe the main shopping areas or stop and shop, and try to carry out some promotion.
Elijah Levet, National EMTV Sports.
Professional kickboxer Nelson the Desert Storm Sampson, who has been attending international bouts in Sydney and Brisbane, says he is now preparing for his first event of 2020. Sampson has represented PNG for 5 years. Godwin Eki reports.
It's only a month into training for the Desert Storm, Nelson Sampson, who says he is preparing well and ready to attend his fight on the 13th of March 2020. Nelson, who's already made a few international appearances in the past, says 2020 is a whole new year, one he says will come with all sorts of challenges, but one that he is willing to fix to better his professional kickboxing career. Having served under different clubs in the past, including his current club, Marksman Fight Promotions, Nelson has fought in Australia under international promoter Steve Jez, under Jez Promotions representing Papua New Guinea. Nelson, who's come a long way, like his fellow kickboxers, is still struggling to make ends meet. But he says it's travelling to tournaments like this one he is already training for, he hopes will change his life. Currently, sponsorship is a major problem for Nelson and his fellow athletes who are determined to succeed no matter what.
Regarding the training, we've been training together for the last couple of months. And I've even traveled in and out in Australia for like some years, like Max had said, 5 years or something. We've been connecting with Team Jazz in Australia. So now we are, like myself, I've been traveling oftenly in Australia. So now I'm preparing very well with Marksman Promotion here under the IFMN Centre. And I'm looking forward for the March 13 fight in Australia and Sydney.
Nelson is hoping that with the upcoming tournaments around Australia, he will be able to impress the promoters and secure a club down under to further his professional kickboxing career in Australia. Desert Storm Nelson Sampson is also bound to fight in April in New South Wales. Godwin Eki, National EMTV Sports.
Don't go anywhere, we'll have more of Trukai Sports when we return.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome back to Trukai Sports. Oceania Fight Promotions is set for another big year of pro boxing in the country. There is also a possibility of Philippine boxing great Manny Pacquiao visiting PNG this year.
Dates of the national titles will be confirmed in the next few days. This will feature more than 10 boxers who will compete for a national title.
No more we will just select people to fight like we have been doing. Only holders of national titles, from the lightest to the heaviest weight, will fight on international events and challenge for regional and world titles.
In April, Oceania Fight Promotions will be hosting a regional title fight for pro boxer Junior Kaukuraka. Kaukuraka participated in all 4 international bouts last year, winning all 4 fights. They are also yet to formalize and possibly bring Manny Pacquiao to Papua New Guinea in July.
The possible, I say only, negotiations are still going on to bring one of the biggest names in world boxing, Manny Pacquiao, to Papua New Guinea. The talks are 90% on the pipeline and will be announced at a later time.
And in November, they plan to host a world title fight in the country after more than 40 years.
The first ever world title fight since John Abba and Eusebio Pedrosa in 1978. There'll be a major world title fight of some big name fighters which will be announced soon. Be prepared, stay tuned, and be alert.
Elijah Levet, National EMTV Sports.
And that ends Trukai Sports for this evening. When we come back, we'll have the weather details for the next 24 hours.
Trukai Sports. Trukai Sports.
This weather update is proudly brought to you by Money Plus. With you always.
A look at the weather forecast for the next 24 hours. In the southern region, thundery showers expected in Daru, cloudy weather and showers in the rest of the region in Port Moresby, Kerma, Alotau and Popondetta. To the Momasa region, cloudy weather and showers in the majority of the region, Leh, Wau, Medang and Wewak, and thundery showers as well in Vanimo. To the New Guinea Islands region, cloudy becoming fine later on for Lorengau and Buka. Thundery showers expected in Kimbe, cloudy weather and some showers over the next 24 hours in Kavieng, Kokopo and Rambow. And in the Highlands region, all the major centres, Mt Hagen, Goroka, Kundiawa, Mendi and Wabe can expect some showers and cloudy weather over the next 24 hours.
The weather update was proudly brought to you by Money Plus, with you always.
And that's the way it is today, Wednesday the 5th of February 2020. On behalf of the National EMTV News team right around the country, pleasant viewing on your number one to watch. Good night.